Good evening, everyone. I am Sandy, Associate Producer at Chicago Lighthouse Media, and we are broadcasting tonight this Facebook Live broadcast from the Chicago Lighthouse Media Center. Tonight, we are speaking with two researchers from the Illinois Institute of Technology. They will be talking to us about the intracortical visual prosthesis. Now, many of you have probably heard about this device. Doctors Philip Lane and Doctors Philip Troik, and Frank Lane, they have been conducting several informational sessions for several years here at the Chicago Lighthouse. And tonight, they are talking to us on this Facebook Live broadcast. I do want to remind everyone that you can post any questions or comments in the Facebook chat that is found in this video. And so first of all, thank you, Dr. Lane and Dr. Troik. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks so much, Sandy, for being with us here. And it was interesting you kind of mixed up our names, because sometimes I think Frank and I are just thinking alike all the time because we've been working on this for so long.
You know, and the Philip and Frank, it's easy to mix up sometimes. So, but you know, you both have been involved with this research for many years now. Can we start off with some introductions and
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves?
So I'm Philip Troik. I'm a professor of biomedical engineering at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. And I'm privileged to lead a 8-institution team for the past 20 years to bring this technology for artificial vision finally to the point at which we might have recipients having them in a clinical trial. And my colleague, Dr. Lane, has been a team member and partner for a long time. So Frank, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely pleased to be here tonight, Sandy. My name's Frank Lane, and I'm an associate professor of psychology and the chair of the Department of Psychology at Illinois Institute of Technology. And I've been involved with this project. Geez, we started conducting focus groups at the Lighthouse almost a decade ago. Time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
But I'm also the co-principal investigator on this project, and definitely honored to be among the group of investigators that are on the project.
Now, going back to Dr. Troik, for those that might not be familiar with the intracortical visual prosthesis, or ICVP for short, what is this system and how does it work?
Well, as you said, ICVP is a short name for what we call the intracortical visual prostheses. And as the name implies, it connects intracortical or into the cortex or the part of the brain that processes vision. It's an implantable system of miniature modules that will be implanted in one side of the brain, in the visual portion of the brain, which is located in the back of the head, just above the neck. You know, if you feel that little bump on your head and in the back of your skull, you just move to each side, that's where your visual areas are. So these little implantable modules are about the size of the bump that's on the top of a pen-light battery. And when they're implanted, the modules are wireless, and they act incredibly like a little miniature cell phone network in the brain through which we can command them to stimulate the visual area of the brain. And the purpose is to take vision information from a camera and then communicate it directly to the brain, bypassing the eyes and the optic nerve for people with profound blindness. And the idea is to provide a crude type of artificial vision.
And, you know, Dr. Lane, I know that one of the things, you know, when a lot of people hear about new research, particularly people with different health conditions or different conditions in general, they will wonder, well, what can that device do for me? But as a researcher, what are you hoping the ICVP will be able to do for someone who is blind?
Well, that's a great question. We hope that the ICVP will be able to provide a crude form of artificial vision for people who have no light perception. And what that crude vision looks like is, we can describe it in different ways. We hope that it will create phosphenes, which are tiny dots of light in your visual field, and that those dots of light will form a shape responding to contrast and color and edge detection. But it's definitely a crude form of vision and is definitely intended to assist with navigation as well as some other guided tasks.
And that actually is a nice segue into our next question with Dr. Troik. You have always emphasized the importance of being realistic with this research. So what will the ICVP not be able to do for someone who is blind?
Well, it will not be able to restore what one might think of as normal biological vision. It won't give back a vision that someone who became blind remembers that they had before. So with this system, it's just not refined enough that someone would be able to clearly see faces. The vision will be crude. If you remember, some of your listeners remember here, kind of like seeing the world through the holes of a kitchen colander that you use to drain noodles. If you hold it up and sort of move it around and look through those holes,
Sure.
That's what we think it might be like. But we do have very good reason to believe that even the minimal vision with training could be very useful to someone who has no vision now.
And, as I mentioned earlier, and I've had you on Chris Radio several times, you have always mentioned about how this research has, literally been going on for decades. And, you have done, the research team rather has done different, studies, different research. Now you are at the point of the clinical trial, So are you, Dr. Lane, are you currently recruiting participants for this study?
Yes, we are currently recruiting. The study is approved by the FDA, and we're looking to recruit a total of 5 individuals who have no light perception. And these 5 individuals that we recruit will form a group, our pioneering group of, we call it the astronaut readiness group, where the 5 individuals will be screened, and then they will be implanted in whatever order is chosen at that time.
And that's something that has always caught my attention, that you and Dr. Troik, you always say that the future participants will be quote unquote like astronauts, and you always emphasize the importance of why, it is important for, the participants are not only, participating in the research, but you even consider them as a crucial part of your team. And what role will they play in the research? What role will the participants play, Dr. Troik?
Well, Frank already alluded to the fact that we use the analogy like astronauts in the astronaut program, where, they were trained and outfitted to be able to go to a place that no one had gone before.
Sure.
And they reported back their experiences. And this was very important for us because humans hadn't been there before. We don't know right now with a device like this, with a system like this, how to communicate artificial vision to the brain. So we may implant up to 40 of these tiny little devices, this little cell phone network in the brain. And they have tiny little electrodes that go into the brain, and we can call them up on our little cell phone network and we can tell them to stimulate the brain, but we don't really know how to communicate with the brain, how to talk to the brain to put these images in. So these participants who will be really dedicating themselves to this will tell us what they experience, much like a first-time explorer, much like the astronauts. And the experiences that they tell us will help us to shape the technology for future recipients in future systems. You know, this study is not a cure for blindness, and it's not a restoration of normal vision, but it is a journey to a place in which, because the recipients will be blind, they can tell us things we couldn't know any other way. I like to think that they don't have a disability, they have an ability to be able to tell us now what's happening when we try this artificial interface with the brain.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's that I know that you know, in your focus groups, that is one of your main components, to learn about the community of individuals who are blind and to get a better sense of what their expectations, what their experiences are, and, you know, learn from these individuals. I do want to take a few moments to remind our viewers, or in case anyone has just tuned in, that you can leave any comments or questions for Drs. Troik or Dr. Lane. Again, we are talking in this session about the intracortical visual prosthesis. Dr. Lane and Dr. Troik are joining us from the Illinois Institute of Technology. Now, Dr. Lane, we have talked, you know, you both just mentioned that currently the clinical trial is underway. You are recruiting 5 participants. What are some of the criteria that the research team is looking for in a potential candidate?
Well, the individual has to have no light perception in both eyes.
Okay.
And they must have had vision for at least the first 10 years of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because we think that it takes around 10 years for the visual cortex to sufficiently develop in order for it to be of functional use with the ICVP implant. The other thing we're looking for is individuals who are motivated to participate in science, in pioneering science. As Dr. Troik talked about the astronaut readiness program and the fact that they are pioneers, that's what we're looking for, is individuals who have that pioneering spirit. We, of course, want to make sure that they're well adjusted to being blind.
Sure.
That they've had a sufficient amount of time for that to occur. You have to have been blind at least for 1 year.
Sure, I see.
And those are just a few of the criteria.
Now, Dr. Troik, who is not eligible to participate in this study?
So when you have a trial like this, the FDA does work with you and worked with our team to define what are called inclusion and exclusion criteria.
Sure.
And these are there really not only for the safety of the participants and the protection of them, but also really in consideration of the scientific goals of the study. So if someone has what's commonly called hand motion vision, so if you wave a hand in front of your face, if they can see that, then they're not eligible.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this is because anyone who has some residual vision, we don't want to risk that participating in this and having these implants could compromise that. There's an age limit. If someone is younger than 18, or if they're older than 64, at this time, they're not eligible. And we have other specific criteria, and that can be found at clinicaltrials.gov about our project. And anyone who's interested can ask, and we can provide the link for that.
And again, for anyone interested, we will be posting the information on how to contact the team on the chat feature of this video. The next questions are for Dr. Lane. So Dr. Lane, what can an interested participant, once someone says they're interested and once they are found eligible to participate, what can they expect from this study if found eligible?
Well, let me rewind just a little bit, because as soon as someone tells us that they're interested in this study, they can go in what's called our pre-screening phase.
Okay.
There's a two-stage screening phase. First is pre-screening and then a screening phase. And if after those two phases an individual is found eligible, the first thing that would occur would be the surgery itself. And there would be a period of about a month recovery time after that. And once the recovery time is over, we're looking, Dr. Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking somewhere between 6 months and a year of individuals coming in and working with the science team to test the device itself.
That's right,
And
Frank.
And we'll talk a little more about the actual testing process in a few minutes, but you mentioned surgery, and I know that that's something that a lot of people, that's one of the things that potentially interested participants will wonder, Dr. Troy, what will the surgery consist of, and are the implants visible?
Well, we do get that question, and it's a good one, because there are other brain-based vision prosthesis systems that
Sure.
have been implanted, and even some ongoing work. And the implants which we put in, which I said are very small, they
How about
are.
what size would you say they are?
Well, if you know what the bump is on a AA battery on the top, that's about the size. So they're about 5 millimeters in diameter. If you got a millimeter scale, very, very tiny little discs.
Sure.
And when they're implanted, the skull is completely closed and they're not visible. So the surgery consists of a brain neurosurgery, which brain neurosurgeons consider quite routine.
Mhm.
And the implants are completely within the skull. The skull's put back, the scalp is closed, and they're not visible from the surface of the scalp. There's no connector on the head, and there's no wires that cross the skin.
Now, once the surgery and recovery are successfully completed, what will happen afterwards, Dr. Troy?
Well, we expect that there would be an immediate recovery. I mean, anyone who has surgery has to have an immediate recovery.
Sure.
And, these days, as you well know, you go in the hospital and you're out before you know it when you have surgery. So we expect that the immediate recovery may be, I don't know, a few days. And then there will be a period of 1 month to allow the devices, to be really fully integrated, to check to see that there's no adverse effects of the surgery or anything like that. And after that month period, then that's when testing would begin.
And the testing will actually take place at Chicago Lighthouse in a laboratory that will be especially designed for this purpose. So what will that testing consist of, Dr. Troy?
Well, we're very fortunate and happy to have the Lighthouse as a partner. And we are having a specialized laboratory here just for this purpose. So the people who would be implanted, they could expect that the testing will be done about 3 days a week, maybe for about 6 hours or more a day. And that would last for about 2 to 3 months. And then there would probably be a reduced schedule of testing that would happen over the first year and then would continue for the 3 years of the study. And because there's 5 recipients, they would be implanted at different times in the study. So the first person, we probably would want to have a full study program for them that would go over the 3 years, more intense at first and then less as it goes on. And then we will learn from the first subject. And so then when the other participants are implanted, then we would be able to go faster with their testing. And the testing will involve us stimulating the system and asking the person what they perceive, what they think they see, point to where they may see things. And then we will try to use a camera system to see if they could use it for something like visually guided tasks or navigation or recognition of objects.
Now, Dr. Lane, now that for people that might potentially be interested in learning if they are eligible to participate, again, to remind everyone, you are currently recruiting 5 participants. And how and when can interested participants register?
Well, the first thing they would want to do is to contact me or one of the other people on my team.
Sure.
And the best way to do that is this a good time to give out email addresses and phone numbers, Sandy?
Please.
Okay. Email address is ICVP for intracortical visual prosthesis, ICVP at IIT.edu. And that's 2 I's and a T, IIT.edu. You can also call us at area code 312-567-5304. That's 312-567-5304. And if someone does not pick that line up, you can leave a voicemail message and we will be notified and be able to contact you.
I want to take a few moments to see if there are any questions in the chat that Dr. Lane or Dr. Troik might be able to answer. If there are, and if not, people who might be interested, Dr. Troik, who might be interested, who signed up perhaps, and I know you briefly alluded to this earlier, but if someone registers and goes through the screening process, when will they find out if they meet the requirements, if they are eligible to go ahead with the surgery?
So again, we're determining the basic eligibility to go through the pre-screening and the screening process with informal discussions, and most of the time that contact would be Dr. Lane. So if you go to the email address or you call up and leave a message, Dr. Lane would be making the contact with you, and then there would be kind of a informal conversation just to make sure that sort of the basic eligibility is met. And then when the interested individuals would go through the full screening process, and that would take about a month to go through. There's some medical tests that have to be done. There's vision tests that have to be done to make sure that they're suitable for the surgery. And after that, then as people come to us, we will be determining if they are eligible for enrollment. But anyone who's interested should contact us immediately. We're recruiting right now. The trial is underway, and we're enthused about people who feel they do want to participate. To think about what the image is, it's that the people may have, because it's crude, it doesn't mean it can't be helpful. And if some of the listeners here remember a crude image that you get from this toy, a light bright toy, where
Sure.
you put the colored pegs in and you make kind of an outline. You know, that's a weak description, but we think maybe it'd be something like that. And so, you know, the eligibility is not meant to really, assessment is not meant to really prevent people. It's meant to find the ones that are best suited so they have the best experience and we have the best scientific outcome. So anyone who's interested should contact us immediately, and then Dr. Lane would start that process.
Great. Well, at this point, again, I want to see if there are any questions on the chat or.
Well, we have one question here. Are you eligible if you have atrophy to your optic nerves?
So I would say that's possible. We can't comment on individual cases, but this system, because it goes directly to the brain, does not require having intact eyes. It doesn't even require that a person physically have eyes or that their optic nerve is intact. So there are certain things, if you've had an injury to the brain and that's how you lost your vision, that could be something that might make one ineligible, but one doesn't need to have a functioning optic nerve, retina, or even physical eyes to be eligible.
We have another question here from Arlington, Texas, individuals saying that this individual's been blind since 6 months. Is he eligible for the program? And that the answer to that would be no, right, Dr. Troy?
Yes. So the best information that we have now is that unless one had the opportunity for the visual part of the brain to develop as expected as an infant and as a young child, then we don't know whether there's sufficient functionality for the system to be able to use. In the future, there may be a different thought, but at this point, that's the thought for this study. And so we've set the range in conversations with the FDA that the person has to have had normal vision, meaning correctable vision, up to the age of 10. And so it's, if the person lost their sight at 6 months, that would certainly be too early and they would not be eligible for the study.
We have another question asking about the age range for eligibility for this study.
So is it just asking what it is?
Yes, what is the age range?
Yes, so presently the age range is 18 to 64. And we are working to try to get the upper end extended, and that may happen. But at this time, the person has to be no older than 64 and no younger than 18.
Okay, here's another question from Illinois. Individual has a daughter that's 21 years old who lost her vision and currently has less than 10% vision in one eye. Will this be available to someone in this situation, with this condition?
So particular cases would need to be assessed by our vision specialist. In general, one should be aware that one needs to have little to no light perception in both eyes. And so if you have vision, any usable vision in one eye, but not the other eye, then that person would not be eligible. It has to be little to no light perception, no hand motion in both eyes.
Okay, I think we've been through the questions.
Great. And, I know that we covered a lot of information in this half hour of this broadcast. So I do want to repeat the contact information if anyone would like to learn more about the ICVP or view our other presentations, our informational sessions, the website to learn more, that is chicagolighthouse.org/ICVP. Again, the telephone number, which we mentioned earlier and which is posted on the chat, is 312-567-5304. Or you can also contact the team at the Illinois Institute of Technology via email. Their email is icvp@iit.edu. And in case we didn't get to your comment or question, we will reach out to you individually. Dr. Troik and Dr. Lane, are there any final thoughts, anything else you would like to add before we close?
Well, I'll just add that, as Frank mentioned, this project for our team has been going on for over 20 years. The beginnings of the project actually go back to 1970 at the National Institutes of Health. Many people have worked many dedicated years of their lives for this project. We're all very enthused about it, and we're looking for enthused people who want to help us to see how to go to the next place in this frontier of artificial vision.
Dr. Lane, is there anything else you would like to add?
Just that we are happy to answer any questions for individuals who'd like to ask us about the project or about enrolling in the project. Just reach out and we're happy to be here.
Great. Well, once again, thank you for your time tonight. Again, I want to remind our viewers that we were speaking with Dr. Frank Lane and Philip Troik. I got it right this time around. They are from the Illinois Institute of Technology, and they were discussing the intracortical visual prosthesis. In case you did not catch the full broadcast, it will be available later on. And again, you can find out more through the website, chicagolighthouse.org/ICVP, telephone 312-567-5304, or email icvp@iit.edu. Dr. Lane, Dr. Troik, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
And everyone else, thank you so much for your time tonight watching this broadcast. I wish everyone a great day and a great night. Thank you.